Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Magic Hour podcast. I'm your host, Shireen Campbell, and I'm the founder of My Little Magic Shop. One day, I lit a candle and asked for clarity in my professional and life path. Soon after, I was gifted with the message that I'm here to help others go through exactly what I was going through then. And just like that, My Little Magic Shop and the Magic Hour podcast was born. Hi, everyone. Thanks for being back on the Magic Hour podcast. Today, we'll be talking with Glenn Harrold, one of the world's most successful hypnotherapists and best-selling self-help author, Glenn. Thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome, Shireen.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm just going to kick it off because I love to hear people's stories. I love to hear how they came to like their modality or their craft of choice. So can you tell me a little bit about how you first discovered hypnosis and hypnotherapy?
Yeah, certainly. It was probably now about 30 odd years ago. I was on one of my previous jobs was that I used to be a musician and I was out playing on the circuit, in South London. And it was one time we were sharing the bill with a stage hypnotist. And I'm backstage waiting to go on. And I was watching him do his thing with the audience, manipulate people and get people to dance around like chickens. He'd click his fingers and, people would do outrageous things. And I was just captivated. It just absolutely fascinated me. And I knew then and there that I wanted to learn it, but I knew that I didn't want to do it for the entertainment thing. I didn't see the value in that other than just entertainment. So I wanted to learn it to, primarily help me get over a lot of my own sort of previous struggles and addictions, because I came from a very dysfunctional family and was kicked out of school at 15 and struggled a lot. I had problems with drink and drugs. And I saw the power in hypnosis to help me free myself from those, old programs, if you like. And so I did a 2-year diploma with the British School of Clinical Hypnosis in London. All the time I started to work on myself. I stopped drinking, I quit smoking, started to get fit and healthy, and got on this more positive, abundant, happy path. And as I was starting to help clients, I was helping myself, and the whole thing had a momentum that took me through to where I am today, and I feel really blessed to be where I am. So yeah, that's the journey.
Oh, I love that so much. Like, I find it like the more healers I speak to, I feel like that story, that theme is very similar, that the desire to like work on yourself and
Yeah.
then share, because you're like, oh my God, look at all these wonderful things that have happened to me. And like, I just feel so compelled to share it with others. So thank you so much for sharing that.
You're
I want
welcome.
to just ask you, just in terms of when you first started, like what was one of the first things that kind of like blew your mind?
In hypnotherapy, as a hypnotherapist,
Yeah.
well, one of the things that happened to me early on was, and I talked about this recently, where I was in a session with a lady who spontaneously had a past life regression. Yeah, I hadn't guided the session that way. It just happened. And for me, they were always the most believable, when it happened spontaneously. And what it was, this lady had a fear of the dark. And so I regressed her back to the root cause of the problem. And at that point, she was in a deep state, and she suddenly flipped back into this past life in ancient Egypt. And she was in a temple, and there were all these, weird ceremonies and sacrifices going on. It was very dark. And then suddenly she started speaking Egyptian.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was like, that just blew me away, because she only spoke English in her normal waking consciousness. And there she was speaking Egyptian, and all this stuff came up, and she spoke for a little while in Egyptian, and then she came, I brought her back, and from that day on, the fear disappeared, the fear of the dark disappeared. And it's like, sometimes the mind will take you on this journey to get to the heart of the problem, and it would just be quite amazing, incredulous, but there she was, she got over it. And yeah, that was an amazing session. And
Oh,
the power of the mind is just incredible.
Yeah. Oh my God. I love that so much. So, like, I'm a huge fan of Michael Newton and Brian Weiss. And they talk a lot about that, like past lives and between life between lives, regressions. And
Yeah,
I just, I just find it so fascinating, so mind blowing, and people find so much healing.
yeah,
Um, I love that so much.
yeah.
Can you tell me just a little bit about this? Like, how would you describe us the state of hypnosis? Because I'm like thinking about this, and I will preface this by saying I've been hypnotized before, and I like feel like maybe I have too much monkey mind, or like I can't get it to quiet, but I've never been in like a deep state of hypnosis. So I'm sure there's lots of other people out there that would want to know. So can you kind of tell us what it feels like?
Well, they say that the average population, they say that 20% are very easy to hypnotize. You say a few words in a therapy session, boom, they go into a deep trance very quickly and they'll take on board the suggestions very readily. What is it? 60% or so go into like medium alpha states, typically, where you're still fully aware of your surroundings. And, you know, it feels like you could open your eyes at any time and you'd be wide awake and you maybe don't feel like you're very deep. And but it's surprising the amount of work you can do even in that light state. You know, I've met many people who've come to see me and they said, "Oh, I don't think I was hypnotized," and it was a very light experience. But then I'd use a ratifier, or I'd say, "Well, how long do you think that lasted?" And more often than that, they say, "Oh, it was about 10 minutes," and they'd look at the clock and it was 45 minutes. So it's kind of like, yeah, if you daydream, sometimes you completely lose track of time. And that's an altered state of consciousness. So when you're daydreaming, you're very susceptible to suggestions. And the key to hypnotherapy is not necessarily the depth of trance. It's about, you know, being able to deliver the suggestions very effectively and for the, you know, the client to be able to take them on board at a deep level. And so even in the other 20%, which are the ones who are very hard to hypnotize, you know, very resistant, you can still do some good work. They can still take on board suggestions and new patterns of behavior. It's just sometimes you have to work a different way to get through to them. And, you know, that's the key. So with every client, I use a different induction and, you know, just different delivery. And yeah, it does work different with everyone. But you know, we all experience hypnosis. When we go to bed at night, that's the hypnagogic state. When we wake up in the morning, that's the hypnopompic state. So it's when you're not fully awake and you're not completely asleep, you're kind of daydreaming. So it's a naturally occurring state.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much. You made that so simple for me to understand because I'm like, oh, I don't think anything happened. Now I'm looking back and I'm like, oh,
Maybe.
thank you. Okay, so you mentioned a little bit earlier about how, like you were playing music and that's kind of how you discovered hypnosis. Do you still use it in your work today? What type of role does it play if so?
Yeah, well, when I started making recordings, I was, you know, full-time hypnotherapist and seeing, you know, 25 clients a week. And then I had the idea to start making recordings, you know, homemade ones just to give to clients. And then I had the brainwave to sell them into local stores, and I did that, and they started to sell. And then I got them into chain stores in the UK. It was a good time, you know. There wasn't much competition, and it was the late '90s back then. And everywhere I put them, they started to sell. And then I got them onto the App Store. And you know, within a couple of years, I had 5 staff working for me, and you know, it was a full-on proper business and totally organic the way it came about. And then I kind of then I got a publishing deal in the UK and one in the States, and you know, I wrote 7 books over probably about a 5-year period, and was really busy with that. And kind of now I'm just making recordings that, you know, for me, I think the most important thing we can do at the moment is to raise our consciousness. You know, because there's so much fear and stress and anxiety in the world, and when our consciousness is high, all of that programming and fear won't affect us because we're above that. We're not buying into it, and we're awake. And so the recordings now, I've just released one on a chakra meditation, which kind of goes really deep, and got a very strong spiritual theme to it. Even work on the 8th and 9th chakras, which they say is the 8th chakra is your halo or your soul. And I get people to really tune into that on the recording. And then the 9th chakra in the center of the universe, you connect up with that. So I love making those kind of recordings that are really sort of deep and have a lot of gravitas to them. And that's the spiritual journey. It's like amazing when we get on it.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That makes so much sense. I know that I'm like a big fan of music. Actually, my mom and I were just listening to Icaros. I'm not sure if I said it right, but I just
Icaros, I love Icaros.
love it. It like just puts me in such like an
Yeah,
open,
yeah,
like loving, like, just this
yeah.
wonderful mood that I think is great. And another thing you mentioned, especially with your chakra meditations, is that, you feel like music deeply affects our energetic levels. Can you just talk about that a little bit? Because I'm like, I know when I listen to Icaros, I always feel like some movement,
Yeah.
and it's wonderful. So can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, the intention in those Icaros, you're picking up on that. There's a lot of meaning behind them, isn't there? I've experienced those Icaros in ayahuasca ceremonies, which are incredible, just amazing, because you're in a highly sensitive state as it is, and then when you hear those sort of sacred sounds and chants from indigenous people in that part of the world where the medicine comes from, it's so incredible. It just hits you. It makes the hairs on the back of my neck stand up now talking about it. And and I myself have made a number of recordings on with certain sound frequencies that really impact people. And I did 6 titles with a gentleman called Ali Calderwood, where we covered the solfeggio frequencies. And these are ancient tones that Gregorian monks used to chant to invoke certain states. So, for example, the first frequency, which was 396 hertz, that invokes feelings of releasing guilt and fear. And so each one of the frequencies, they chant to invoke these certain feelings. And so Ali made the music based on each frequency, which was absolutely beautiful. It was divine. The music he makes was very special. And then we created a meditation between us, and then I deliver the meditation over the music, and the recordings have been really well received. We get a lot of amazing feedback on them. And it was a really kind of it kind of came out of nowhere making the series with Ali, and we it's still going really strongly today, and it's a combination of my voice, the music, and the frequency itself. It's kind of like if you write a song with someone.
Yeah.
It's the input of the two of you, and then the producer mixes it, and it's got that magic of the individual parts make something amazing. And the solfeggio's had an element of that, where we put together something that seemed to have a really great effect on people.
Yeah. It makes sense. I remember like there was one song where all of a sudden, like in a ceremony, it's playing, and then I just like tears are like flooding down my face. I have no idea what I'm crying for. And then all of a sudden I'm laughing, and I'm just like feeling my belly move, and I'm just like, what is happening? And it's all
That's
from
the
the
ayahuasca ceremony, is it?
it was a mushroom ceremony, but the shaman, she's very in tune with ayahuasca, so like she feels like her energy comes in during the
Yeah.
ceremony, but it's like everything, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like I don't have any control. The music is like playing my body, and my body feels like water. Like it was.
It's so amazing, isn't it, when you get to that point and you're in that sort of sensory experience, and then you hear the music, and the music is just beautiful if you hear it through good speakers. And the mushroom ceremony, I'm going to experience in that soon. There's a place along the coast here in Portugal that runs ceremonies. It's the same place I've experienced ayahuasca recently, and because I took mushrooms when I was younger, but I only did it without any consciousness. It was just a
Yeah.
kind of experiment.
Yeah.
I'd love to do it now with real consciousness and reverence for the mushrooms, and yeah, that would be an amazing experience.
Oh, you're gonna have to message me and tell me how it goes. I want to hear about it, especially
Yeah.
given like your background and because I'm like thinking of like you wrote 7 books over the course of 5 years. So I'm like thinking like you must have employed some sort of self hypnosis or like something to like to be able to do that. So I'm like so excited to hear, what mushrooms helps you to do.
Yeah, well, it was when I signed the deal with Orion, it was a case of then I was kind of I had to write the first book within 3 months, and I was highly motivated because it was an amazing opportunity.
Yeah.
So I had where I lived in England at the time, I had a big conservatory on the back of the house, and it overlooked fields, and I just used to sit out there for 14 hours a day just writing, and really constantly on it, and it was a good time, really good experience because I was very disciplined with it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing, whatever you want to do, if you get the fire, the determination, and the passion. I always say to encourage people to find their passion. If they're in a job or in a career they're not really fulfilled in, maybe they've done it to pay the mortgage, look to where your passions lie and what you really lights you up, and start to work on that side of things, start to build something, even if it's a little online business, and because that's the key to really creating magic in the world, isn't it? Yeah.
That is the name of my shop, and that's exactly what I did. So I'm like, yes, that is exactly how you do it. Little small steps.
Exactly, isn't it? It's and you're following your passion. So you don't work when you follow your passion. You never look at the clock, or you don't. It's not work, is it? You love what you do, and I'm so glad that I found this. I found this path. Seeing that hypnotist doing his thing on stage, suddenly took me in another direction, and and it's amazing how life pans out when you follow your passions. Rather than just getting caught in the matrix and doing a job to pay the bills and that. I did that as well for a while, but you know.
It's so, so true. So, like, I feel like I get in contact, especially now. Like, I feel like the world is just going through such transformation, like, as I feel like there's this call for everyone to just stop, pause, and just be open and start to listen to themselves. And I feel like hypnosis is one of those really great tools to help people connect with their passion. So, like, would you be able to share for anyone out there who's listening, like, maybe a technique or a tip that can help them connect more with their passion, or, like help them to understand themselves a little bit more deeply, that's easy for anyone to do at home?
Well, I would say that if you learn the art of self-hypnosis, and it's not really a difficult skill set to learn. It's really about having the discipline to apply it, say for 5 or 10 minutes every day. So if and I still do that now. I still make a few minutes every day just to close my eyes, clear my mind, breathe very slowly and deeply, and I breathe in through my nose, out through my mouth, and I just get down into that real centered Zen state where my mind is clear. And when you get there, you find you actually sink down, your shoulders drop down, and you feel like you're dropping down, going down in an elevator almost. And when you get to that space, your creativity naturally comes up. And you don't have to do anything. You don't have to think of anything. You just have to be very still and centered, and just allow yourself to be in that state. And, if you've got a busy day and you took 10 minutes in the middle to do that, you'd come back from that feeling much more productive and creative, and because your conscious mind is switched off for that time, and you allow the creative part of your mind to come up, to be activated. So I'll send you, as part of the I'm sending you a recording, aren't I?
Yay! I'm excited.
So with the recording, I'll have this guide to self-hypnosis in there. So people can learn the technique. It's only like 5 pages on a PDF. People can learn the technique and then use it in their day-to-day life. And the more you implement it, the more it can help you in so many ways, because most of the time you can have things in the future that you're a bit nervous about. You might have to do a speech, or you might be going somewhere for an interview or anything like that. And the technique will allow you to prepare yourself in the best possible way. So if you've got any future situation you're a bit nervous about, if you use this technique and then visualize being in the room, feeling calm, in control, speaking with confidence, when you get to do it for real, you'll be in the zone. You'll be in that peak performance state. So it's a great technique for learning that, to get in a peak performance state. And the mind doesn't distinguish between what's real and what's imagined.
Yeah.
So when you're doing this, when you're preparing yourself in this way through visualizing it, and imagining yourself in the room with the smells and the sights and the sounds, it's when you get to do it for real, your mind believes you've done it a number of times already, and you'll absolutely shine.
Yeah, I love hearing about that, because I feel like that's, especially a lot of athletes even use that. So they'll like
Exactly.
envision themselves, like making that basket or scoring that touchdown, and like they'll use it,
Yeah.
and then it'll be there, it'll happen, which
Yeah.
I think is
It's
amazing.
a, it's a peak performance state, and they know that they can, they're not going to reach 100% peak performance all the time. But if they use a technique like that, it will get them to, above 85, 90% most of the time. And it's quite amazing. I used it once with a gentleman in the UK who was he was going to be doing a speech at a celebrity wedding. It was a big wedding, and he was an ordinary guy, but he was friends with the best man who was marrying a very famous lady. And he came to see me, and he was a bit nervous, and I said, look, I just got him into a really relaxed state. He didn't go very deep. He didn't go into a deep trance state, but he was very receptive to the suggestions. So I got him to imagine standing up and delivering the speech and looking the celebrities in the eye and feeling really confident and, funny as well. He used humor a lot, and I gave him a cue that as soon as he stood up, he pinched the back of his hand. So like that, you pinch your hand, and that's a cue. So when you use that in a hypnosis session, you kind of anchor all the positive feelings to that pinch. And so before he got up to do the speech, he did the pinch, got up and he spoke. And I actually went to the evening part of the wedding, and I got there and I was chatting to someone, and they said, he said, you should have heard the best man speech. He said, this guy was like a stand-up comic. So I got to him and I said, what happened? He said, I don't know. He said, I pinched my hand. He said, I got up and I was making them laugh. He said, it was amazing.
Oh, I love it. That's amazing. I love
It
that
just
so much.
worked a treat, and it is an amazing tool to have in your, armory. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it definitely is. And especially like I really appreciate the visualization part of hypnosis. Like I feel like I'm a big daydreamer, and
Yeah.
like I feel like that's my most creative state. And I'm like, I have to make sure that I spend time doing it every day. And just like you said, like 5 minutes, 10 minutes a day can really be like life changing.
Yeah, exactly that. And it is that thing where if you wanted to build a great physique, you go to the gym a number of times a week, you'd work out, and your body would tone over time, and you'd be fit. And the mind is the same. If you work on it in the same way, you find, your ability to manifest things gets, refined. You get very, very sharp. You get, a higher vibrational energy, which attracts, puts you in positions and situations with things that match those frequencies. And it's something that you develop through the discipline of doing it every day.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing thing. Yeah. So I'm so glad I saw that guy on stage all those years ago, because
Oh,
it was,
it's destined for it to happen. I bet like right before your soul was like, something's gotta change. And then it was like, oh.
yeah, that's it. That's a good point, because I was looking for that. I was looking for the thing that was going to get me out the struggle and the difficulty. And they always say, don't they? There's that great saying that when the student's ready, the teacher will arrive.
That is
And
whew,
And it's not
Real.
like some guy with a white beard's going to turn up and sit next to you and drop a load of wisdom. It's you look around and it's there. That hypnotist guy was my teacher at that point, and it led me in a different direction. So it's being open as well to, the opportunities that come into our lives in
Yeah.
subtle ways.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. I just have two more questions for you. So, where can people find more information about you? Just give us all your socials and your website, whatever.
Yeah, so I've got a Facebook fan page, which is my main place. People come and connect with me. But I was on Instagram. I got taken off of Instagram. I don't know why. I wasn't posting anything, conspiratorial. I was just posting family pictures and work stuff. I got taken off, but I've started another one. I have got another one on there. So Glenn Harrold, I think it's Glenn Harrold 8
Okay.
on Instagram. My website is www.glennharrold.com. But the best way to access my recordings is on the App Store. So my main app is called Relax and Sleep Well. And it's got a number of free recordings in there. So there's no sign up or anything. You can just download it and listen to the recordings straight off the bat. So yeah, that's it.
Perfect. And then, do you have any new projects that you're super excited about that you want to share with us?
Yeah, I've been working on I'm working on a music video at the moment. I wrote a song years and years ago called Freedom, Hope and Liberty, and it's kind of a bit of a protest song. And I'm working on that and just putting a video together of it, some really powerful footage. So that's something I'm excited about right at the moment. I'll release that very soon. I've got a couple of books that I'm going to come back to in the spring. I'm just in the middle of a house move. Bought this lovely house just along the coast, and we move in a couple of weeks. So once that's done, I'm going to get cracking with the books again.
Oh, amazing. I can't wait. Well, thank you so much. I super appreciate
You're
it. This was a
welcome.
wonderful and enlightening conversation.
Yeah, lovely to speak to you, Shireen. Really lovely. And I'll be joining you on the mushroom trail soon. Probably
Okay.
spring, I reckon spring.
Okay, definitely. Please stay in touch.
Yeah.
That's all for today's podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next time. Thank you so much for listening to the Magic Hour podcast. If you want to learn more, you can find us on our website, www.mylittlemagicshop.com, and follow us on our Instagram at mylittlemagicshop. See you next time.